Hello everyone, welcome. Today we are going to back in time and talk about foreign influences on Old English. We are Tatiana Merchant and Michelle Sarmiento. The purpose of this video is to show our classmates the different paths the English language has taken and the different origin it has taken into it, in order to expand itself. The first topic we are going to cover is the contact of English with other languages. During the first 700 years of Old English existence, it was brought into contact with the three other languages from the Celts, the Romans, and the Scandinavians. The Celtic influence. Rather than being completely exterminated, a large number of those Celtic peoples were gradually assimilated into the new culture. Some of them were held as slaves by the conquerors. They stayed in England rather than fleeing into Wales, Scotland, and Britain. Remember, the Celtic term most likely to survive into modern English is in place names. For example, London is a Celtic designation. Thames is a Celtic river name. Devonshire contains in the first element the tribal name Devon. The three Latin influences of Old English. The Anglo-Saxons wanted to learn Latin because it was the language of a highly regarded civilization, and it was not the language of a conquered people. The three occasions the Anglo-Saxons have to come into contact with Roman Latin civilization and borrow Latin loanwords before the end of the Anglo-Saxon period was at first commercial and military, later religious, and then intellectual. For several hundred years, Anglo-Saxons had various relations with Romans, through which they acquired a considerable number of Latin words. It is difficult but necessary to determine closely as possible the date at which each of the borrowed words entered the language. But, in a large number of cases, it is possible to assign a word to a given period. Most obvious is the word in literature, as in Beowulf or the poems of Cynewulf. During the Zero period, military, slaves, traders, and merchants were more likely to adopt Roman words because they had to interact with other people, most of them being in contact with a higher civilization. The adopted words naturally indicate the new conceptions that the Germanic peoples acquired from this contact with a higher civilization. Agriculture and war were the occupations of Germanic tribes, and its experience is reflected in words like. One of the most important branches of Roman commerce with the Germanic peoples was the wine trade. Hence, such words in English as wine and vinegar. The greatest influence of Latin upon Old English was occasioned by the conversion of Britain to Roman Christianity beginning in 597. Let's review some extra information about the topics we have covered until now. They were a nomadic tribe of warriors whose appearance in Europe dates back to at least 800 before Christ, although they are most normally associated with Ireland. At their most powerful, the Celts controlled vast areas ranging from Turkey all the way to Ireland. They were people who lived in Rome, the capital of Italy, more than 2,000 years ago. In the year 100 after Christ, they became one of the most powerful empires thanks to their army. The Roman Empire covered much of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East.
The next topic is about the effects of Christianity on English civilization. The introduction of Christianity meant the building of churches and also the establishment of monasteries. Latin, the language of the services and of ecclesiastical learning, was once more heard in English. In addition, schools were established in most of the monasteries and larger churches. The two monasteries of Wearmouth and Jarrow were founded by Benedict Biscop, who had been with Theodore and Hadrian at Canterbury, and who, on 5 trips to Rome, brought back a rich and valuable collection of books. Biscop's most famous pupil was the Venerable Bede, a monk at Jarrow. Bede assimilated all the learning of his time. He wrote on grammar and prosody, science and chronology, and composed numerous commentaries on the books of the Old and the New Testament. His most famous work is the Ecclesiastical History of the English People, written in 731, from which we have already had occasion to quote more than once, and from which we derive a large part of our knowledge of the early history of England. In short, the Church as the career of Roman civilization influenced the course of English life in many directions, and, as is to be expected, numerous traces of this influence are to be seen in the vocabulary of Old English. And the last topic, but not least, is about the earlier influence of Christianity on the vocabulary. Let's see. From the introduction of Christianity in 597 to the close of the Old English period is a stretch of more than 500 years. During all this time, Latin words must have been making their way gradually into the English language. It is obvious that the most typical, as well as the most numerous class of words introduced by the new religion would have to do with that religion and the details of its external organization. They are adopted words because they express ideas that are new or because they are so intimately associated with an object or a concept that acceptance of the thing involves acceptance also of the word. Because most of these words have survived in only slightly altered form in modern English, the examples may be given in their modern form. The list includes angel, alms, candle, pope, temple, tunic, and many other words. But the Church also exercised a profound influence on the domestic life of the people. This is seen in the adoption of many words, such as the names of articles of clothing and household use, such as cap, sock, words denoting food, such as beet and cabbage, to which we may add the noun cook. A certain number of words having to do with education and learning reflect another aspect of the Church's influence, such as school, master, grammatical, gloss, and many others. In conclusion, the contact that English had with other languages shows us certain effects, especially additions to its vocabulary, and the majority of words in modern English come from foreign, not Old English roots. Finally, we took information from this book titled A History of the English Language by Albert Boff and Thomas Cable. Thank you for watching.